So this is Masterclass Lesson 13, Damage Output and Damage Quota. So let's start playing the video. This some gameplay I have, so I was like, oh, I'll use this for example. I wish I had better examples, but for now this will have to do. And I don't want to go try to record some examples. I got other things to do. So damage output. As you can see, I'm swinging for 1 damage. So I don't have much else in this hand right here that I could play. He didn't play a turn 1, a 1-drop yet. So I couldn't play Bodyguard Legic, so I was only able to output 1 damage. But if I had a Chopper or Supreme Kai, I could have went for 2 damage. So damage output is important, whenever you get a chance to do the most amount of damage that you want to do it, turn 1, you want to do as much damage turn 1, 2 to 4 damage on turn 1. If you can do more, even better. I could have arrived. That was an option. I'm looking at my hand now. It's like, yeah, that was an option. I could have arrived because I do have green and red in my hand. I could have arrived, so I could have done 3. I had 2 cards in the draw, but if I combo more, yeah, I could have done 2, 4. I could have done 5. I could have done 5 damage on turn 1, because I could have got Bodyguard Leg, not Bodyguard Legic. I could have got Gogeta, and I could have overwhelmed and got Bardock's Awakened Warrior Bardock out there, and that's 2 20k double strikes. I could have got that in there, but I didn't. I just went for the 1 damage, but I could have done more. But of course, this hand's pretty good, so I want to save it for when I can do like some big stuff. So I'm thinking, what happened here? Okay. I'm like, oh, it's not my second turn yet. So now I'm on turn 2. So every turn you want. Okay, so a minimum of damage output, obviously it's double strike and this, that, and there. I get more into that after this, but damage quota, you want to do at least a minimum of 2 damage per turn. That way, by turn 4, your opponent should be at 2 lives, and you should be going for game on turn 4, right? That's pretty basic, but sometimes some decks you gotta do more, like you gotta do 3 or 4 damage at a certain turn per your deck's strategy. Right here, if I swing with it first, which I think I do, does look like I'm going to, yep, so that I can get the extra damage in there, right, the extra attack. So right here I have the potential of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then Kaba 6, 7 potential. Well, we'll see what happens here. I actually don't even remember the plays I do in here, but it looks like I could do a good amount just with the basic stuff I have on the board. Right here I have 3 attacks with the Unison, the Leader, and Bodyguard Legic. So that's 3 attacks going at my opponent. But if I use my Unison, I get 2 more attacks, so at least 5. So that's why I was talking about damage output. Not only how much damage you could try to swing at your opponent with, right? You could try to deal your opponent. It's also costs, right? How much it will cost for you to do so. As you can see, Bodyguard Legic was a free attack, right? The Unison only cost me 1, and it's going to give me 2 more bodies, so that's 2 more attacks. So the way to look at the Unison is that essentially it's a triple strike, right, or triple attack, so to speak, because I get 1 attack from the Unison, and then I'm going to get 2 more from its effect. So that's why I look at it, and it only costs me 1 energy to do this, so that's busted, right? And then of course after the attacking, then of course I have the Belmont, which I can play by sacrificing my 2 skillless Keflas and my Legic. And since I have a Unison in the drop, that's obviously going to give me 4 cards, which means I can overwhelm. So you already see I have a pretty good hand here for outputting a lot of damage. I still have red and green in my hand, so I could, and I have one red up, so I could arrival. So we'll see what happens. This is a weird play. Oh no, I know what happened. I'm like, that seems weird. Why didn't I attack? It's like, oh, okay, I know why. Because he's awakened. The 2.5K, the 2.10Ks are pointless. He's awakened, so that's what I'm doing. I'm going for that's why I'm going for this. I'm trying to get 20K and above attackers. As you can see, I did the Belmont thing, so I'm able to play this 15K for free. So at least this could hit even without comboing. But of course, if it was stronger, it'd be better. It's critical, so I'm going in, try to deal some damage. I don't boost. So what I've done, I've done at least this turn, one last turn, so that's at least 4. So in 2 turns, I've done at least half 4 damage. So that's good. I could have obviously dealt more damage a little bit earlier, but then I would have less cards to play this turn. At least this turn, most of the cards that I would have comboed last turn to do a rival play, I'm actually playing them and using them. So this line of play wasn't bad. It just looked a little weird for me at first. I like every battle card I put on the field to swing, but yeah, I didn't want to combo anything from my hand to try to swing when I could just play cards from my hand. Alright, so that's a super combo from right. He plays that. And I go for saying Kabba. So I'm trying to put in some more double strike. I don't mind taking a life, because of course my leader awakened at 2. And once I'm there, you know, obviously I have an extra life bar, as it were. So get some plussing. Get that 20K double strike in there. Boom, it hits. So that's nice, right? So, and this is turn 2, and my opponent's already down to 2, and that's the whole point of like damage quota. Having predetermined amount of damage you want to deal in a single turn. I was actually able to deal more. This is only turn 2, so I only really need to do was 4 damage on top of whatever I dealt turn 1, which whether it was 1 or 2, or at least try to deal 4. And if I only deal 2, that's fine, because you know, if I dealt 2 turn 1, then 2 more turn 2, that's not that bad. So that's why I was like meeting your damage quota. Oh, the other thing about damage quota is the idea that you want to deal a certain amount of damage, so once you do, don't overextend. Like here, clearly I'm getting greedy. Here I'm like, oh man, turn 2 game, I could go for game on turn 2, but it's like, nah, I'm giving it up. I mean, I'm testing the waters, obviously. I'm seeing if I can get that in there. Since I'm playing Fuse, I'm also set 2. I have no problem, you know, going all in and, you know, tapping out and all that stuff, because I literally have a second life bar. So the likelihood of my opponent ending me out on this turn, on their turn, it's not likely, because they have to deck me out, which is not going to be too easy to do in one turn unless they do a whole bunch of shenanigans and drop a Cells Zeno on me or something. It's not going to be that easy to take me down. So I'm sitting nice and pretty behind my wall of defense, my Fuse muscle. So I'm working with double the life that my opponent's working with. My opponent's already at 2. I'm technically at 12. Technically at 12. Well, actually 2, and then technically 8. I'm working with 8, technically, if I'm right. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. 8 plus 2. No, I'm actually working with 10 life. So technically I'm working with 10 life right now, because once I get to 2 life, then I awaken, then I have technically 8 life, because every time I take damage I melt 5. So I'm looking at my life, I mean my deck as part of my life, of course. So I'm currently with 10 life right now. My opponent has 2. So I'm sitting pretty in this scenario. So he's trying to do some stuff, you know, taking down my board, you know, clearing it. And you can tell, obviously, that's another thing I noticed. If he's not going to, he clearly has no plans to take me down this turn. I mean, won't be able to anyway, but he has no plans to take me down this turn, which is why he's clearing my board and ending his turn. And you see, I still got 4 life. So clearly my plays were a threat. Ooh, I could not charge now, so that way I can, you know, try to keep for overwhelm. But if I want to play that, nah, can't play that. It requires 3 red. So I'm more likely going to charge that as energy, since the high possibility I won't be able to play anytime soon. I definitely can't play this turn. Yeah, this duel definitely is not sped up. This is clearly how slow it is. Like, that took long for that to do. This is not sped up. I'm just using this as an example for damage output. As you can see, my opponent's already at 2 life. I'm still at 4, which shows, you know, how good my decks are, because they, you know, damage output is important. So my decks might not look as pretty as some people might like it to look like, but it puts in work. As you can see, my opponent's already at 2. You know, all I have to do is get a double strike to go through, and I got game. Now, one thing that does suck about this leader a little bit, of course, is the fact that I have to be awakened to start drawing. So I don't have the ability to draw on the awaken on the front side. I have to awaken to draw, and I'm not nowhere near capable of awakening at the current moment. So you want to have something that will let you draw. There is a new Piccolo, so I would want to upgrade this deck. This is an old build. I would want to upgrade this deck with that new 2-drop King Piccolo, Descendant of the King, or some shit like that. Piccolo Jr., Descendant of the King, or something. Because it has a +1 draw, as opposed to just a +0 draw, which sucks. Because you know. So +1 draw is nice, and it's a 15k and all that other good stuff, and it has other abilities. But the main thing is it's a +1, so I will want to put it into this deck, so that way I can get, you know, have a draw engine. Because that's the thing, is like, clearly I'm running low on gas, as they say. My opponent's has mighty thick, but I do have the advantage on the life. So it's just a matter of me making a pretty big, strong play, something that can help me get that last 2 damage through that thick hand. Because sometimes you gotta keep that in mind, that your opponent can defend. So that's why damage quota is important. If you can get 2 or more damage in through your opponent's defenses, because you gotta assume your opponent's going to try to defend. If you can get 2 damage, you know, that's good. You know, a minimum of 2 damage is always good. But 1 damage sucks. That means things didn't plan out right. You know what I mean, right? That means maybe your leader was the only one that dealt damage, and everything else you played didn't do shit. So you want something to go through. So you want to deal your opponent 2 damage prior to making any other plays, any other decisions. Sometimes you gotta take the 2, right? Deal 2 damage, and then just end your turn. You know, don't overextend. Don't tap out unnecessarily. Sometimes people do. Sometimes people tap out just because they're like, oh man, I could do an extra 4 damage. Let me tap out for the extra 4 damage. Like, that's nice and all, but if your opponent can go off next turn, you're gonna regret it. If they can go off and sell Zeno your ass, then you did yourself in. You know, right now my hand's very empty. Very empty. But once I awaken, I will be able to draw 2 cards. So that's one thing. And then once I start swinging with the leader, I'll start drawing, so I'll start replenishing my hand. But it would have been nice to have a unison that will allow me to draw, so that way my hand doesn't get this empty. What was this? Oh, this was the effect of that card though. Why am I at 1 life? Is that a trigger my leader's ability? That's another thing. Yeah, but my leader would really be pointless, right? To trigger the effect, 'cause I don't draw from activating the effect. Critting a life just to, well, I got a blocker, so that's only good. Some defense. Yep, his leader gets stronger. I can't do nothing to save that, so I stopped that attack. Interesting enough, that attack wouldn't have mattered. Like, I should have not blocked that. When you look at it, it's like I shouldn't have blocked that attack. Should have just taken it. He's trying to deal me damage. I take it so that I could be awakened. So now I'm trying to get some cards in my hand. So now when he attacks, I'll be able to awaken stuff. But the thing is, he's gonna start hitting me with double strike, which would be better for him not to hit me double strike when I'm awakened. I'd rather him try to. I would have preferred to block the double strike, at least the first one, because we know he can attack twice through his effect. But it would have been nice to block the first double strike and then just take the second one. That way I won't only mill 10 cards, because here I would end up milling 20 cards, which is half my deck right there. Because you gotta look at this guy like he's a dual attack. Something happened. I guess I chose to just let him get the victory, because something went wrong. Well, anyway, so there's some illustrations of damage output. Not the best, because there are better scenarios where you get to see me do 4+ damage per turn, or at least I could output like 6 damage, but maybe half goes through, or 2 damage go through, or 4 damage, you know, that kind of stuff. So quota, like I said, you want to have pre-planned. Every turn you got to have a plan for how much damage you want to deal with whatever deck you build. Sometimes people don't do that. They don't plan out how much damage per turn, because I'll literally see a duel where the turn 1 they won't deal no damage. Okay, it's like, okay, maybe you'll make up for it in turn 2, and then turn 2 maybe deal 1 damage. Like, okay, you're not playing right, and then they lose. I'm not surprised. I wonder why you lost, because literally you dealt 1 damage on turn 2 instead of turn 1. Like, I understand if you can't do more than 1 damage, like on turn 1. Like, turn 1, you swing with the leader, you should at least deal 1 damage. That usually happens. More often than not, you will deal the 1 damage with the leader, which is why I like to use Champa, eat Supreme Con, you know, that kind of stuff, and get that extra damage in there. Because if I could do 2 damage turn 1, that's great. That's basic quota right there. 2 on turn 1, 2 on turn 2. By the time you get to turn 3, your opponent should be at 2 life. You know what I mean? Because the first 4, I've said it many times, the first 4 damage is the easiest to do. You know, the next 2 damage after that, you have to put in a little effort. You know, you might have to combo to get that extra 2 damage. You know, but you will deal 6 damage at some point, at least before turn 4, right, or turn 5, depending on your opponent's like really blocking. Especially if they're putting up blockers, yeah, it's gonna be a little bit harder to get 6 damage by turn. By turn, like, 4, it might take up to turn 5 to get to your opponent down to 2 life. But once you get them there, then it's all a matter of finish them off. Because the main thing is, for me, is mastering end game, right? Mastering dealing your opponent the last 2 damage. When you build your decks, when you strategize how you want to win, aka your win con, you got to take into account your opponent is going to be awakened, so they'll be 15k. Let's say they might have an effect that's like Senzu Beam, right? So then they'll have an extra 5k. That's the new thing I've been thinking. Like, I don't think of leaders when they're awakened as 15ks anymore. I've been getting into the habit of thinking of them as 20ks, because there will be times where they might have that effect or something even more broken than that. But they might have a Senzu Bean effect, or your opponent might actually play Senzu Bean. So then you gotta make sure that you got 20Ks, 30Ks, try to fit as many 20Ks and 30Ks in your deck as possible. That's why, you know, Graded Warriors Bark is really nice, because there he is, bang, right off the bat, 20Ks. You want cards that doesn't, and then you got the grade 8 30K, right? These can output a lot of damage. See, triple strike, and this has double strike. And this is a really go-to card for blue for damage output. And here's a go-to card for yellow for damage output. And then red, of course, you know, they got the Champas. Then you got going wide and all that stuff. But you got, these are, you know, basic go-to cards that you can go and get that, you know, that extra damage in there. Dealing 1 damage here and there is not enough. And then trying to rely on, like, all right, I put I got 4 battle cards. I'm gonna swing with all of them, and hopefully they all go through. Well, they might not all go through, which is why it's better to give them the ability to deal more damage. So the more double strikes you put in your deck, the better, because if you can get 2 or 3 double strikers out in play, that is a 4 to 6 damage output. And if you only deal 2 damage, well, at least you dealt 2 damage. You met your quota. If you could do 4, even better. That's even better. Because it's hard to guarantee all 6 damage. You know, not impossible. It can happen, but you're not counting on that, because that's too much. That's literally expecting your opponent not to be doing shit at all in the game. And you're just getting all them free damages, right? Just boom, 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 double strike all day, every day, and your opponent's not even trying to stop you, right? You have to assume, obviously, your opponent will try to stop you. So you have to take the fact that they'll out combo, they'll defend, blah blah blah, all the usual stuff. Which is why you're trying to output as much damage as you can with less cost, because you don't want to tap out, especially if a lot of your defensive cards requires energy. You want to save them for your defensive cards, obviously, right? You want to be able to hit your opponent, but be able to block their attacks, right? Hit them, defend, right? And blue does it pretty well, because blue has the ability to untap stuff, you know, untap energy. You know, they got the Senzu Beans, and they got the, you know, the Janimbas, for example, or just cards in general that can untap energy. This can untap 3 mono blue energy. So essentially, it's a 20K deflect crit. A 1-drop deflect crit, essentially. By its effect, it essentially only really costs you 1 energy just to get a 20K crit with deflect. So that gives you something you can swing with, and something you can, and then of course just have energy to, you know, defend and do whatever you gotta do on your opponent's turn. So blue can definitely be aggro if you play the right cards, like Senzu Bean, you know, this Janimba, for example. You know, being able to play stuff for free. I mean, Hatchigak, it's free if, you know, you have 3 more energy. You know, so blue got some good stuff. I mean, even unisons are really awesome, because once you put them on the field, they stick. Now, having dual attack is almost the same as playing more than 1 battle card per, you know, per turn. You know, red is good at putting a lot of bodies on board for free, you know, Bodyguard Legend, for example. But blue has some ways of going wide. They got a booty. Red got go tanks, so it's easy to go wide. Green got at least this. Not the greatest card in the world, but this is not that bad. This here gives you 3 bodies just by playing it. So there are some ways of going wide with different colors. But, you know, again, like I said, damage output. You want to do as much damage as possible. Black, you know, they got the ability to overwhelm, so, I mean, the ability to play something essentially for free. And then black, you can splash in any other color, so if you put overwhelm in any of your decks, you're adding extra damage output. So that's the importance of damage output. Here's a 30K double strike. Here's a 30K that can get really, really strong, and you give it double strike, makes it even more dangerous, right? And that's where Champa comes in. You know, again, you see this has dual attack. This has double strike right here, this unison. And, you know, you want to deal your opponent as much damage as you can at any given moment, and you gotta be prepared to deal them that damage. Sometimes you gotta sneak it in, you know. That, like, for example, Baby Golden Adventure is pretty nice because of this counter. So, You could like use your leader to force out a negate and be like, bang, attack with the leader. My leader has, you know, triple strike or something, and you know, it has an ability to boost itself, or you combo to make it strong, and then your opponent, well, you don't get to combo yet, obviously, but you attack, you get my point, like you attack, and your opponent might be like, nah, I don't want him to combo, so let me negate the attack, and then you're like, aha, counter, got you the Golden Avenger, and now, you know, you increase, now you end up in the going into the combo phase, start comboing, hopefully your attack goes through. If really your attack doesn't go through because he out combos it, well, you have another 30k, you have a 30k triple strike that you can go for game with. But, so that's the thing, you know, is I notice that a lot, like when I be watching gameplays, you know, because you know, a lot, you can see the player's hands, you know, especially if you're on tap or something, but sometimes you can see the player's hands, so you know what they can and can't do. So then sometimes you might notice that they don't put out as much damage as they could, you know, and it seems a little weird because like there's no reason for you not to. There's no reason for you to, you know, put in more damage this turn. It's like you're expecting something to happen that ends up not happening. You know, I understand keeping 2 red energies up to play topo when you know for a fact your opponent's gonna try to go for game on their turn, but it don't make sense to, you know, keep 2 red energy up for topo, right, when your opponent's actually not going to do that, when it's pretty clear they're not going to do that, you know. And if you don't know they're not going to do that, then you're not really paying attention to the game state. If you don't know that they're not going to go off, you know, because sometimes I see somebody will flying Nimbus unnecessarily, like I'll swing with the leader and then they'll play flying Nimbus, and it's like, okay, whatever, auto draw, right, if I have that type of leader, draw and my turn or something, because I probably didn't have anything, and that tends to happen sometimes. And I understand, you know, flying Nimbus is good, but if my opponent's not going to really go off the next following turn, there was no real need to use that until they know for a fact that they needed to do that, and it wasn't necessary. A lot of times they're not paying attention to the board state, because I could have literally 3 energy and they'll flying Nimbus my leader swing. It's like I had nothing. I had my turn. It's like, did you not notice turn 1 I didn't do anything, turn 2 I didn't do anything, now I'm on turn 3, still didn't do anything, yet you feared my 3rd turn and flying Nimbus, and then it turns out you're not even gonna clap back, right? You're not gonna come at me and, you know, try to finish me off, and then it's my turn, then I might finally make a decent play, and then it's like, you should have saved the Nimbus, you know, but whatever. I like it when my opponents mess up, so I'm not trying to give them advice to play better, but like I said, damage output, the cheaper the better, right? That's where double strike comes in, and I keep trying to put double strikes and triple strikes in a lot of my decks, or going wide strategies. Any way of getting extra bodies on board is always good. That's why stuff like a Booney, Gotenks is good. Can't wait to make cheaper costs. They gotta be crazy. A 3-drop card that makes tokens, you know, other than this one, but makes like really good token, like double strike tokens, be busted. I don't want this video to be too long. I already stated that you need to, for quota purposes, pre-plan how much damage you want to do per turn, and then build your deck based off doing that. If if your goal is to do 2 damage on turn 1, 3 damage on turn 2, make sure you build your deck to do that. Most people I notice they don't. Sometimes they're just more concerned about like playing a card because it's good. Like Obuni is good, don't get me wrong. Obuni is good, but he's a turn 4 play. Unless you have a way to ramp and make him a turn 3, maybe even a turn 2 play somehow, he's a turn 4 play. You know, you'd rather You rather play something, you know, that you could play as soon as turn 1, like Bodyguard Logic, for example, and then just give them, you know, combo, chompa, and bang, get 2 damage right there and then, instead of trying to wait until turn 4 to try to swing with 4 damage. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it's just more logical to combo certain cards, you know, mix certain cards together and get something out sooner than later. Just like, you know, Bodyguard Logic is awesome because he's 20k, he's double strike. You know what I mean? Just for 2 energy. As soon as turn 2, you can just start swinging with him. Him, leader swing, you know, bang, that's 3 damage right there on turn 2. Relatively easy. And you can make the leader a 20k just by comboing, so there's that. And then drop this bad boy. So always count your damages, because if you realize that you on turn 3 and you only dealt 1 damage, you know something's wrong. Sometimes people don't even notice that the game state is not in their favor, because they, you know, they didn't do the damage, and they didn't realize that they didn't do as much damage as they should, because the following turn should have been the turn that they win. And then they end up going, let's say on turn 3 they only dealt 1 damage but didn't do 3 when they should have. And if they did 3 damage, right, their opponent would be at 1. So let's assume their opponent would be at 1 life on turn 4. But instead, because they only dealt 1 damage, their opponent still has 3 life. Which means by the time turn 4 hits, their opponent's still at 3. And if you don't got triple strike, you're not going to be able to finish your opponent off with one attack. And you always have to assume that only 1 attack will go through. You got to make sure that that 1 attack counts, because your opponent's hand is probably going to be thick by that time. So you got to assume that you need a triple strike. But you'd rather be in a scenario where you only need a double strike or a single strike. Like I said in the other example, if turn 3 you dealt 3 damage, your opponent would only have 1 life on turn 4. That even if you did something like in a boonie play, which might seem like overdoing it, your opponent only has 1 life, but you're playing 4 bodies, right? Well, the more the merrier, you know what I mean? It's the name of the game. Sometimes you need 4 bodies just to deal 1 damage, you know, plus the leader swing, right? So bang, 5 bodies just to deal 1 damage. You gotta think that way. So, you know, plan out. That's why damage is important, because if you're gonna play a boonie on turn 4, your opponent better be at 2 or 1 life by that time. They should not still be at 4 life, and you're trying to finish them off with a boonie. That's not going to work. That's what I'm trying to say here. And that's the end of the video.